If you're anything like me and you find yourself building ProPresenter files each week, it might be a little difficult to remember everything that you need to put into those files. Between selecting the right stage display layouts, timers, graphics, it can be easy to forget something, leaving your team scrambling on a Sunday morning. My name is Joe. I've been leading church production teams for the last 7 years, and in this video, I'll show you how I build our ProPresenter playlist template to achieve consistent results each and every weekend. Now, I want to start by saying this isn't going to be a video diving into the ins and outs of how ProPresenter works and all the features it has. There's tons of great content already online about that. This is just going to be talking through building a playlist template that you can use each and every weekend as you build files. Now, at my church, we actually wipe ProPresenter at all of our campuses every single weekend. That kind of wipes the playlist and the different ProPresenter caches. And we actually have a macro that does this for us. And if you want to learn more about how we do that, comment down below and maybe I'll make a video about it. Now, the reason we do this is because in the past, ProPresenter has gotten confused as to what asset it should be pulling from if we create a massive library of presentation files. We want ProPresenter to have a clean slate every single weekend. I'll share a story that happened one time. We had in my last church, our pastor gave us a photo that he wanted to use in his sermon. And so we import that photo into ProPresenter. You can see on the thumbnail, that's the photo he gave us. We're like, awesome, great. We're in message, we click that slide, and it's a completely different photo on output. You can imagine his shock when he looks up at the screen and sees, oh, that's not the photo I presented, and it's some random kid on top of a hay bale, and he's in front of a couple hundred people giving a sermon. And so that's why we wipe ProPresenter. We don't want any chance of that. We want to ensure that it is a clean slate every single weekend and that the files that we're importing are the files that are actually going to show up on output. Now, as a multi-site church, we have to be really careful that all of our stage displays, all of our themes, they're all named the exact same across the board because we don't build the ProPresenter files on the actual CG machines that we use on the weekends. We build them on a completely separate device. And so we need to make sure that across the board, we're working with the same file names for each of the stage displays and templates and themes that we use on a weekend so that when we build it on that one computer, that it shows up correctly on all of the campus CG computers. So again, I'd really recommend making sure that before you get started, before you start building any sort of template, that all of your naming for things like your stage display layouts and themes are the same across the board to ensure that when you program it in one place, it shows up correctly in another. So with that out of the way, let's jump into ProPresenter and start building this template. Okay, so as you can see, we have a blank ProPresenter file here. And nothing happening. Let me show you just screens real quick. Here are our screens. You have output screen 1 and your stage display is stage screen 1. We'll keep it simple today. And then we also have our layouts here as well. And so I have a lyrics layout. We have a count up timer and a countdown timer for our speakers. We actually have 2 speakers and they do prefer to have different timers, so that's in here as well. And then the other one that we'll use quite frequently is actually our host. We have a sermon series theme and a quarterly graphic refresh theme that we use. And then in today's example, I'll build out 2 campuses. One is going to be the broadcast campus, we'll call it, and we IMAG at that campus. And so for worship, we have lower third lyrics. And then at our video campus, campus number 2, we will have full screen lyrics and full screen graphics as well. And you can kind of see as I scrub here, you'll see a combination of lower thirds and full screen graphics. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by renaming this real quick. We'll call this playlist template. And then we're going to add in some blank presentation files. And so I'm just going to hit Command N here. And we'll start with pre-service. And then message. Actually, what I'll do is change this to live message for our broadcast campus, and then I will create a playback message for our second campus that is video playback. Next, we'll go ahead and do campus 1 host, campus 2 host, and then post service. Okay, next we'll go ahead and copy these into playlist template and do a little bit of rearranging here, making sure that it's in the order we want. And there you go. So we have just a really basic structure now that we can build off of. Now you'll notice I haven't added any worship songs in here yet. That's because we'll add those in when we actually build our weekend ProPresenter files. Now next, I'm going to build some headers that will live in this playlist. I like using headers for 2 reasons. One, it helps our volunteers be able to identify where they're at. Again, it's not super difficult to see. You can just read the presentation, but it is nice to be able to kind of color code some stuff and be able to separate it. And the second reason is I think aesthetically it looks better. So that's why I do it. So let's add some. So we'll start here. We'll set this as pre-service. And then I'll add one here that is called service start. And then I'll add another one for worship. We'll have another one for live message. And we'll do playback message, host, end of service. I'll just create those real quick. Great. And now I'll go ahead and throw some color on this. So I'll go ahead and make worship green. And I'm going to come out of here and make live message red. So, because it's live. And then I'll go ahead and make playback message. Let's do magenta. And honestly, I might want to turn some of this opacity down just a little bright on some of these here real quick. Change color. Bring this down. Same for the red. Okay, the host will make yellow. It's a common color for us for live. Same thing down here. And then I'll go ahead and keep our pre-service, service start, and end of service just gray for right now. So now we're going to start adding a little bit more structure within each of these presentations of slides that we know, hey, we're going to use this regularly. So let's start with that. So let's dive into our pre-service here. And I know that there's going to be 2 elements that we have here. Our church, we use a walk-in slide and a countdown video. If your church uses kind of the rotating slides for your pre-service, that's totally fine. I'll touch on that a little bit later when we get to post-service, because that's what we do for our post-service slides. But let's jump back in here. So the first thing I like to do is label. I love labeling things so I know, hey, this is where I drop the graphic in when we get there. So I know that this is going to be our walk-in slide, and then we also have our countdown. So next, let's jump into our message. I'm going to duplicate this a few times here. Okay, and we'll go ahead and set this one to be a blank slide. And then this will be the bumper for our bumper before message. This will be ID, when we ID our pastor. And then this one is going to actually be a timer reset. And I'll jump into that in the next section. Next, we have a playback message, and I'll do 2 slides for this. This one will just be a blank. And then this one I actually didn't make a label for, I don't believe. We'll call this one just side screen graphic. Label that real quick. And there we go. Now at our video campus, the message will actually be played on a center screen. And so that means we'll have to put some content on our side screens. And so for that, we'll go ahead and select side screen graphic as our label that we'll use in that presentation. Now with our host slides, I'm trying to think through what are all of the things that they may need to be talking about. So, for us, a common thing is, a new here slide, a baptism slide, a giving slide, communion, whatever it might be. I'm going to try and add that stuff in. For this demonstration, I'll go ahead and keep it simple, but just think through, hey, what are the common things our hosts talk about? And are there slides that we might be able to add in to save ourselves the trouble of having to add them later? It's easier to delete than it is to add, I find sometimes. I'll just go ahead and add the slides I need to Campus 1 and copy it down to Campus 2, and that should make it easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And first we will have our blank on this one. And then we'll have an ID. And then I feel like most churches do this, but we have a new here slide. So if you're new, text this number or go to this place in the lobby. And then next we will have a baptism slide, for example, and then a giving slide. And then I always add in just 2 or 3, or in our case, I think I actually have 5 in our template that we use. Announcement slides just for like random things that maybe hosts need to talk about. I will put that in here. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and copy all that down into campus number 2. So remember I said earlier that campus 1 is iMag, campus 2 is a playback campus. There's no cameras at campus 2, and so we'll have a full screen graphic that we'll cut to in between all of these slides. And then finally, we have post-service. I am going to go ahead and do 3 slides here total. We'll do a prayer slide, a see you next week, and we'll do CCLI as the last one here. Now, if you recall, I talked up top about, we only have a walk-in slide and then a countdown video. For churches that are doing a rotating kind of graphic deal for their pre-service kind of walk-in, or maybe they're doing a countdown timer or whatever. Obviously, you can do whatever makes sense. This is, how we do it in our post-service. I like to label each of these things. I do understand that some churches are like, oh, we need to add this into the pre-service so everybody knows about this event or whatever it is. But you could take a similar approach here if you'd like. All right, that should do it for creating just a basic structure. Now we're going to move into the secret sauce of this, which is our action items that go in our presentation files. This is great because I don't like having to think through all of the different action items that I need to add into the presentation when I'm building the file. I find that I forget stuff, and so this is just easier for me to do it in a template, because then all I'm doing is dragging in the media that I need or whatever. And I'm only having to throw action steps onto, things like lyrics. Now at this stage, we'll also go ahead and add in transitions from slide to slide or from element to element. So we don't have to do that later either. All right, so we'll start with pre-service here. First thing I'll do is add the action for stage. And we'll go ahead and just set this to blank because for us, nobody's on stage during the walk-in slides, so they don't really need to see anything on our stage display. Countdown timer, though, I will set stage to, we'll just do host. They can see the time, and yeah, makes it easier. All right, next we'll go ahead and set a dissolve transition from slide to slide. And that takes care of pre-service. So next we have the message. We do need to add a clear all to our blank, and then we have our bumper here. I'm gonna put actually our stage to be set to blank on this one. Our speakers are usually pretty good about knowing when the end of a bumper is coming up. And then for ID, we'll go ahead and add a couple of steps here. So we'll first set our stage to, actually let me back up. I'm gonna go back and redo this. Okay, so now we're gonna add in for both ID and bumper. We'll add in a stage action here. We're gonna go ahead and do countdown timer. And the reason I put it on both, we don't always have a bumper every single weekend. And so this way, if there is no bumper, when they click on the ID, the stage display will change. Next, we'll go ahead and add a timer. We're gonna do countdown timer. Next, we'll go ahead and add a timer reset. So let's do countdown timer, and let's do, reset. And so it'll reset the timer for us. So if I hit stage screen 1, you'll see timer's moving, and then when I hit reset, it will reset the timer for us. And then finally, let's go ahead and set our transitions. We'll just do dissolve for now. Again, you can adjust these parameters. If you don't want a 0.6 dissolve, shrink it down. But for now, we'll just keep it that way. All right, then we have our playback message. And again, we need to add a clear all here. And then I'm actually just going to set these both to have a blank stage display. There's really no reason to have that up for us, at least in our case. And then finally, we'll go ahead and set a dissolve here. Okay, so for our host moments, and I do this for worship too, in the event that maybe our ProPresenter operator skips a slide, I don't love only having the stage template triggered on the first slide. I will actually highlight every single slide in this group or in this presentation and add the stage timer to ensure that no matter what slide they start on, that stage display changes. Then we'll go ahead and add in our blank here. And there you go. Oh, and I almost forgot, we need the dissolve transition. And actually what I should have done was waited to copy this in. And now I can just go ahead, copy this with all of those actions added, and then we'll go ahead and set our dissolve here. And there you go. And then finally, we have post service. We'll go ahead and set our stage to just be blank. Don't really need anything on the back wall for this in our case. And then we'll do a dissolve, and we will actually do a go to next timer of 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, our slides will advance. Now, if your church is constantly changing its graphics, and what I mean by that is you have baptism slides or prayer slides each and every week, and each week that's looking different, maybe you're getting a different graphic sent to you every week, might be a good idea just to leave this as it is and maybe export the template from here, and then you just add those things in each and every week. But if your church is like mine and you have consistent graphics week to week, adding that in is a good idea. Okay, so as you can see here, again, I don't bring everything in. I'm just bringing in the stuff I know isn't going to change from week to week. So for example, our countdown video may change every week. It may not. I'm sent a new countdown video every single week, so I drop that in when I'm building weekend files. So it shouldn't live in the template. Bumper, I don't bring in a bumper either because our sermon series may be 3 weeks, it may be 2 months. It just kind of depends. And so I just bring that in every single week. Our IDs I create every single week, and I'll kind of show you later as I'm building out a weekend service. You'll see how I do that. Again, back to kind of similar thing to the bumper sermon series side screen graphic. That I leave blank. You got the host ID, but again, I have our new here baptisms and giving graphics that are in both the lower third and full screens for the 2 different campuses. And then our post-service slides, I've dumped those in as well. CCLI does change every single week because we do different worship songs every week. So I'll add that in when I build weekend files. So that's it. There's a solid playlist template that you can use each and every weekend. At this point, you can just right-click on the playlist and hit export, save it, preferably somewhere safe that is backed up so that if something happens to your hard drive, you have it somewhere else. Next, I will just show you how I use this template and finish building out a short weekend service. All right, so we are in ProPresenter now. So first thing I'll do, because I'm going to bring in a worship song real quick. So I'll come in here and grab the song, import it. Okay, and then we'll just put it here under worship. I'm just going to do one to keep it simple for this week. But generally, the first thing I do is import our worship. I come in here, I change our arrangement. We'll do default. Now, as you'll see, I'll have to change the theme depending on the campus, and we'll dive into that later. But the key here is to make sure that before you change the theme, you set your arrangement first, because if it adds different parts of the song and you've already applied the theme, it won't apply to the theme to the slides after you've set the arrangement. So we got that. I'll hit Command A, grab all of it. We'll do a lower third first. Okay, and just like I said earlier with the host moment, I'm going to add stage display to every slide, and we're just going to say lyrics, and then I'm going to go right click and add clear all to our blank slides. Great. So next, let's go into the countdown. I should have some videos here that I can pull from. So here's our countdown video. We'll do a few things here. First, we'll go into inspector, change it to stop, and then the last frame or end behavior will be clear after last frame. Okay, and then also ensuring we set this to foreground. Great, and so that takes care of that. Going into our worship at top of service, scroll through, make sure that the theme applied to all the slides. It did. Awesome. Now we have bumper after worship. Do the same thing, foreground, and then go to inspector, stop it from looping, fade to black. Oh, sorry, fade to clear. Which I realize, I may have done this wrong. Fade to clear. That is our preferred way of doing it. Okay, back to the message. I'm going to go ahead and create a ID. Okay, and we'll say pastor. And again, this was our sermon graphic series. I'm not a pastor, in case anybody was wondering. Okay, and then we have our side screen graphics here, and for message playback, this is our playback campus, and we'll drop that in, change this to foreground. Great, so we're looking pretty good. Now we're gonna tackle the host moments real quick. I am gonna do lower third on our quarterly graphic, edit. And my last name is very long, so we'll stretch that out a little bit. Do campus pastor. Again, I'm not a pastor. Okay, I don't actually have any announcements, so I'm going to go ahead and delete these. And then I'm also going to put blanks in between each of these so our CG op can advance fluidly if they keep the key in at the broadcast campus. Great, that takes care of campus 1. Now we're going to go ahead and do campus 2. This one, I'm going to go ahead and drop in this as our side screen graphic. Make sure we set this as a foreground. I'm going to go ahead and do full screen. We'll do the left, edit. We'll just, again, put my name in. Very long name. Campus Pastor. It's funny typing that. Okay. And we'll go ahead and delete these two announcements. Don't need those. Come in here. Copy blanks so that we get nice smooth transitions in between our graphics. Great. And then the last thing I have here is a CCLI graphic that we use. Let's go ahead and put that to the foreground. And that's it. And now at this point, everything is in, and you're probably wondering, hey man, you still have both of your campus hosts in there and all that stuff. I do. What I'm going to go ahead and do is right click on the playlist and duplicate it. We'll see campus 1, campus 2. And then what I'll do from here is, okay, campus 1 is going to have a live message, but it's not going to have a playback message, and it's not going to need campus 2 hosts. So I'll come in here and hit delete. And then campus 2 is not going to have a live message, and it's not going to need campus 1's host. And so I'll come in there and delete that. And so now that is all set up. So at this point, I'm ready to export only campus 1, because like I said earlier, campus 2 will need full screen lyrics, but ProPresenter, I have not found a way. And if you know how to do this, please comment down below, because it has been driving me bonkers. ProPresenter does not allow you to have different themes for lyrics that I've found. And so I have to export the broadcast campus first with the lower third lyrics, and then change the lyric theme to go full screen, and then export any remaining campuses that need that. And so again, to export, I just right click on the playlist, hit export, save it wherever I need to save it. And then I'll come back over here and grab lyrics, Command A, right click, themes, full screen. That will change it to full screen. I then go through and make sure that the lyrics are correct. Great, we're full screen. And now I can right click and hit export on campus 2. And that's it. That is how I build our weekend ProPresenter files using a template every single weekend. If you've enjoyed this content, consider liking and subscribing. If you have any questions or any thoughts that you want to add to this conversation, please drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to respond, and I'll see you in the next one.